This review is for a mature rated game and discusses mature themes. Viewer discretion is advised. In all of my 2 years of reviewing and discussing games on YouTube, and indeed my whole gaming life to this point, I have never really experienced a game like Persona 5 before. This is my first Persona game, a review requested by the Davis and Dennis Show. But first of all, what is Persona 5? Persona 5, originally released on the PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4 in 2016 for Japan and 2017 worldwide, is a JRPG and is the 6th and most recent main installment in the Persona series, also known as Shin Megami Tensei Persona, which is a spin-off from the Megami Tensei franchise, or as it's generally known internationally, Shin Megami Tensei. The Persona series consists of a group of high school students who juggle their, mostly, mundane lives with the extraordinary, which involves fighting shadows by using personas, a physical manifestation of the inner self. Persona 5 is a heavily story-based game that takes a long time to complete and features a lot of content, so the only way to review it is to take my time. You don't need to have played the previous Persona games to understand Persona 5's standalone story, though developer Atlus is surely determined to keep the story as spoiler-free as possible. The silent protagonist is a high school student, Joker, who you can name, who is put on probation due to a false assault charge while defending a woman from an abusive drunk. As a result, he is transferred to a new school in Tokyo, while lodging at a cafe with a family associate. Not long after, things get more supernatural, when a mobile app leads him and a rebellious student named Ryuji into the metaverse. They meet a cat-like creature named Morgana, who explains that the metaverse is a realm consisting of physical manifestations of humanity's cognitions or subconscious, usually in the form of palaces. The three of them are soon joined by student and fashion model Ann, and form a group, the Phantom Thieves of Hearts. Their goal is to explore a palace and take its leader's treasure. The first one, for example, is an abusive sports coach. This effectively changes one's heart, causing them in the real world to publicly renounce their horrible actions. More and more young characters join the Phantom Thieves to reform society, but their double lives gradually become hard to manage as conspiracies and conflicts are unearthed that put their lives and possibly even the world at risk. The story is set in modern-day Tokyo and feels very much relevant and relatable, with themes that include but are not limited to morality, even in the main characters, corruption, especially in adults and authority figures and those who pass the torch, technology/social media, youth rebellion and angst, limitations in modern society, control and being free to think for yourself, and how cognition and belief affects one's view of the world. The story is generally full of twists and turns, given how the first scene is a fast-paced flash-forward, before switching to a flashback as a primary storytelling device. Any flaws with the story are mostly subjective. For one thing, the pace in this game is fairly slow. It may take a few hours, maybe even 10, for the game to grab you. Even then, there are moments where it feels like the game slows down to a grinding halt, especially after you have changed a bad person's heart, where the main characters will generally engage in leisurely activities, school excursions or trips, eating food, and long conversations. These moments generally seem to epitomize the heart, no pun intended, of what this game, and possibly even this series, is about, which is the characters. The characters are generally likable, relatable, and have their own personalities, quirks, goals, motivations, and backstories, though they can sometimes act out of character for no reason other than to serve a story. Still, the interactions between them develop to an emotional catharsis by the time the game ends. Overall, the story is compelling, full of depth symbolism, and is surprisingly dark in parts, though there are more than some much-needed light-hearted moments.
For real?
The story and its characters are generally well executed due to a very stylish presentation. Even those who don't necessarily like anime will surely be sucked in by the art style. The style is focused more on darkness and realism, with the thematic colour being a harsh red. Yet it still is pleasant to look at, with vibrant colours and locations based on real-life Tokyo. Conversation pieces are done in the general style of a graphic novel, featuring the endearing facial expressions of the characters. The hand-drawn anime cutscenes are simply great. What is generally impressive are the little details. When preparing to go to a palace, each character is doing their own thing. The loading screens change up slightly depending on the weather or location or what's going on in the story. The user interface or UI has to be commended for its stylish look and ease of use, complete with easy to read information and striking angles and character models. It is all well designed to be pleasing and accessible for many people. The only flaws that can be leveled at the graphics are that it is sometimes glitchy and poorly pixelated, but that is barely noticeable. The soundtrack in Persona 5 is also outstanding, comprising over 100 tracks, most of them with an awesome bass line. Influenced by acid jazz, the music continuously changes genres and even fuses them, including rock, disco, funk, soul, and of course jazz, and good old-fashioned orchestral cues. The variety is nice, with each palace, for example, having its own complementary piece. Tunes change up ever so slightly, such as Beneath the Mask. The most noticeable part of the soundtrack is the inclusion of several vocal tracks sung in English, which are good regardless of the sometimes unclear singing. Songs like the intro one, Wake Up, Get Out There, contribute to the style and the themes of the story.
Wake up, get up there. Raise your voice, I guess like yours. Bigger and a lot higher. Why does nobody want you?
And as with almost any RPG, one may get tired of the battle theme, which is last surprise, but then again, you may not.
You never see it coming. You see that my mind is too fast for eyes. You're done there. By the time it hits you, you're not surprised.
One of the best vocal tracks is the intense standalone boss theme Rivers in the Desert, which you're better off hearing for yourself whether you play the game or not. Those G minor music chords strung together in a fast tempo, it's so good. Speaking of vocal tracks, the English voice acting is generally good, though the English localization and translations are far from perfect because of stilted phrasing, poor grammar, and questionable use of words regardless of the differences between English and Japanese.
Anyway, it can't be helped if that's the case. Time for you to go to—
Are you really a bad person, as the rumor says? You just don't seem like it.
The Japanese voice acting is also good, of course.
桜宗次郎だ。1年間お前を預かることになってる。どんな悪ガキが来るかと思ったらお前がね。
Persona 5 features a lot of gameplay to play with, which means the only way to even start talking about it is to say one word: tutorials. The game thankfully doesn't feature numerous stupid brain-dead ones about moving your character or interacting with the X button, but there are a lot of tutorials. Many of them mostly appear in quick succession. You even see new ones at the 10-hour mark. Much of the tutorials by that moment are the essential basics that make up the general flow and progression of the game, but still plenty of new ones appear depending on other mechanics or game locations. Thankfully, you can look at the tutorials on the main menu if you've forgotten anything. Still, it can potentially feel overwhelming or confusing. It feels like there are a little too many gameplay mechanics which could have been trimmed down, regardless of the potential strategies involved, even with ideas such as treasure demons and skill cards. Some mechanics are also inadequately explained, not explained at all, or are left to the game's manual. Anyways, the gameplay is generally compelling and can make it hard to put the controller down. The gameplay can be best divided into two categories: the real world and the metaverse. The real world gameplay can be best described as a social simulation game. The day-night cycle is the most important thing to keep note of here. You, as Joker, will generally go to school during the day, and what happens after school or on holidays/days off, outside of scripted story events, is mostly up to you, with time management being a crucial element. Almost any one activity you decide to do will change day to night and night to morning. The most notable activities are those that increase social stats and character relationships. Social stats are independent of the typical RPG stats that involve attack and defense power and so on. The 5 social stats are knowledge, guts, charm, kindness, and proficiency. Studying, for example, will increase knowledge. Some activities or character relationships can't be unlocked unless a social stat is at a specific level, so you can't spend time with Makoto unless your knowledge level isn't dumb. Spending time with people or confidants is important. The confidants consist of either your party members or other people who can help. All of the relationships are symbolized by the major arcana of a tarot card deck. Spending time with confidants in a productive and timely manner increases their rank, which unlocks new abilities such as switching party members during battle, or bonuses such as being able to buy new equipment and items, more often than not at reduced prices. All of these confidants also have their own side stories, though some stories, just like the abilities / bonuses, are better than others. And when you're not necessarily spending time with confidants, there are other things you can do. You can work part-time to get more money, you can make tools, you can pursue leisurely activities such as playing retro video games with simple button combinations, and while you're at it, why not invite someone else to play with you? Just like in the good old days. In that regard, you can get more than one reward from a certain action. Working will not only get you money, but can increase a social stat. Spending time with confidants can have a similar effect. Also, depending on the day of the week and the weather, social stats can be increased even more so. The only problems that can be leveled at the system of time management is that it can be sometimes hard to tell where and when confidants are, and that scripted events, such as story events or trips / holidays with a group, can potentially throw your planning ahead off balance. Subjectively speaking, the real world nature doesn't exactly make for escapism, though there's really no time pressure like in, say, Zelda Majora's Mask. There is time pressure, however, in the other category of gameplay, the metaverse, which consists of the aforementioned palaces, or as RPG veterans would prefer to call them, dungeons. When Joker and the group have to change someone's heart, there is a deadline they have to meet, otherwise it's game over. The mission in each palace is understandable. Explore the palace, then find where the treasure is, and secure an infiltration route to it. Then set aside 2 days to send out a calling card and take on the boss of that palace. That mission is easier said than done, because each palace is generally vast, features a number of puzzles to solve, treasure chests to open, safe rooms to rest in, and of course, many enemy shadows to fight. You can avoid battles with these shadows by engaging in stealth, Solid Snake eat your heart out. Though its effectiveness is hampered by the camera controls feeling a bit too twitchy. Be careful not to get spotted too much, because not only might you have tougher battles with enemies surrounding you, but the security level can go up, to the point of forcing you to retreat from the palace. The puzzles to solve are not necessarily taxing on the brain, but they can feel more tedious than anything. There is no greater sigh of relief to utter during this game than the moment of finding a safe room. The safe rooms not only allow you to heal or save your game, they provide a fast travel system so you can go to a later one when going back and forth between the real world and the metaverse. That back and forth momentum is important so you can rest after many battles, as well as make lockpicks, the aforementioned tools to unlock certain chests, and focus on the aforementioned real world activities. In fact, you go straight to bed after visiting a palace. No staying up for you, Joker, so you may need quite a few day cycles to find the treasure. As well as the palaces, there is the mostly optional dungeon of Mementos, a series of randomly generated mazes which not only provide good opportunities for gaining experience, items and money, but the option to fulfill requests from confidants that involve changing the hearts of more horrible people. The aforementioned weather conditions can also affect the difficulty of Mementos and therefore the quality of rewards.
Show me your true form!
The battle system in Persona 5 is turn-based, without an active time battle mechanic or reaction/action commands. Don't let that throw you off, however, because battles are fast-paced enough, regardless of your serious thought processes. And again, it's stylish. What it basically boils down to is finding an enemy's weakness, which stuns them for a turn. Elemental weaknesses such as fire and ice make sense, though there can be a fair amount of trial and error involved, such as figuring out that guns are good against mostly wind enemies. There's your helpful tip. Be careful of what weaknesses the personas in your party have, as well as some attacks having no effect or bad effects on enemies. There is the chance for critical attacks, or technical effects that depend on a status ailment such as being dizzy or frozen. This is especially notable for tougher enemies and bosses, since buffing your stats is important when exploiting elemental weaknesses is not necessarily an option. Apart from gaining experience and learning new abilities the normal RPG way, you can do a few things when an enemy is stunned. You can negotiate with them, provided they're on your level or are not a boss, to get items or more money than usual. Or if you don't make them mad, a shadow can become a persona and be part of your collection, a bit like the Pokemon games. Joker has the ability to use and switch between multiple personas, whereas the other party members have only one persona each, like Ryuji's electric attack focus, Captain Kidd. Therefore, which personas and party members accompany Joker is an important strategy. One of the most stylish aspects of battle is to ignore negotiating altogether, and have your group do a fatal all-out attack.
Finish him! They're done for! The beautiful rose has thorns.
It's a personal favourite of mine. One last aspect to mention about the actual personas is the Velvet Room, where you can fuse personas together to make new ones, or sacrifice them for experience points and items/equipment. Fusing personas, as well as temporarily leaving them in a Velvet Room, allows for new skills to be learnt, or inherited. Each persona also is associated with a major arcana, so the higher a confidant's rank is, the more skills and experience you can get, sometimes even exceeding Joker's level. Fusing personas is important for customizing your collection, as well as increasing a specific confidant link, though there can be accidents involved in the process. It can be a bit hard to grasp the concept of fusing personas at first, alongside the many other gameplay mechanics. Plus, it's ultimately harder to grasp or even determine the difficulty level of Persona 5. Is it a hard game? There are 4 difficulty levels, plus a 5th one from DLC, which, with the exception of safe, you can swap anytime when playing the game. If only more RPGs regardless of length did this. Even on easy, the enemies can be a little tough, though could that be more so due to understanding the game and trying to unlock everything? The only moments that can be truly considered hard are surprise encounters and bosses having multiple phases, both of which can catch a player off guard. There's a good chance that by the time the game ends, you may not have seen everything. Every confidant story, every activity, or maybe even maxing out your social stats. There is a New Game Plus option where equipment, money, the list of personas in the Velvet Room, and especially your social stats carry over to a new game after the end credits. That should make trying to romance one of the girl confidants in the game easier? Maybe the game is also a little easier with the network features, or the Thieves Guild, that allows you to see what other players did on a certain day cycle, rescue a party member taken hostage from battle, stop an enemy from increasing the security level, fuse personas, or get answers for questions you're asked in school. Seriously though, outside of common sense or things you happen to know, don't feel shame in looking up the answers on the internet just to increase your knowledge stat, or do well in the exams. Anyways, that means that this game can provide many more hours beyond the approximately 100 hours or so it takes to complete the game the first time. Yes, Persona 5 is an extremely long game, potentially to the point of fatigue setting in, or even forgetting, for example, how and when you met certain characters. This combined with the anime art style, slow pace, and variety of gameplay mechanics, not to mention moments with a story and characters that could be considered cringy or even too mature or offensive, may mean this game is not for you. You may even prefer other Persona/Shin Megami Tensei games, or other RPGs, or other games entirely. But I ultimately found the experience of playing Persona 5 unforgettable. The compelling story, especially with its darker undertones that can be considered relevant in the imperfect world we live in, does make an emotional impact. Maybe you would like to be a phantom thief and reform society, or at least change your cognition and how you view the world, which is one of the key aspects of a game's subject matter. Persona 5 was developed ultimately to be artful entertainment. The production values are stylish, complete with music that anyone in the room while you're playing may actually like. Figuring out what to do next and strategizing, after you've understood the game a little better, can be very fun and addictive. Plus, the inclusion of Joker with the Memento stage and music from the Persona series as DLC in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and the upcoming release of the enhanced version of Persona 5 Royal in Japan in October 2019 and worldwide in 2020, not to mention other media surrounding it, shows that Persona 5 is not going away anytime soon. This is a JRPG that should be in your PlayStation 3 or 4 collection. Hey, thank you so much for watching. Thank you to the Davis and Dennis Show for the request. And especially thank you to my family and friends, including those who have played with me on Viddy plays and stuff, plus the developers of the games, and those of you who have accompanied me on my, so far, 2-year Video Games for Fun journey for however long you have been. You're awesome. Let's see if we can make year 3 a better one. Now, doing this review took up most of my day, but I can... Morgana, what do you mean I have to go to bed? Can't I make a lockpick for tomorrow? Just one? That cat. Oops, he's not a cat. Anyways, have a good day or night or whatever it is, and again, thanks for watching.